Hey everyone, welcome to week 10 of the college football season. Happy Halloween, everybody. We have an amazing set of games coming up this weekend. It's probably the biggest weekend of the year, so let's go ahead and start just diving into some of the games for this weekend. We're going to start off with a Thursday night game this week. We have a big American game between Temple and Central Florida. We all know the story behind Central Florida, the 12th in the first college football playoff rankings, but they're playing a really good Temple team. This one, I think I would not be surprised at all if Temple ended up winning this game. But I am going to pick UCF. The only reason I'm picking UCF is because the game is in Florida. If it was at Temple, I probably would have picked Temple. But I think Central Florida will find just enough to continue their undefeated season at home against Temple. So UCF with the win on Thursday night. Let's move on to our Saturday games. Let's start off with a huge SEC matchup. We have the Georgia Bulldogs playing the Kentucky Wildcats. This is basically going to be the SEC East Championship game to determine who goes on to the SEC Championship. This one, Georgia, you never know what you're going to get. They struggled a couple weeks ago. But looked really good last week. Kentucky had to come back from behind to pull off a win against Mizzou. So this week I'm going to go ahead and stick with Georgia to go ahead and beat Kentucky. Kentucky's had a great season so far, but I think Georgia will just have too much for them this week. The next game is a Big 12 matchup. We have the West Virginia Mountaineers going to play at Texas. We know that Texas had their first Big 12 loss last week. So there's a three-way tie right now with OU, Texas, and West Virginia in the Big 12. So this is obviously a really big matchup there. The loser will have their second Big 12 loss this season. I'm going to go ahead and pick West Virginia to win this game. I said last week, even though I picked Texas, that I wasn't sold on them. I think they has had some struggles, and I think those struggles will continue again this week, even though they're playing at home. So I'm going to pick West Virginia over Texas in the Big 12. Let's move on to the Big 10 for a couple of matchups. The first one is Iowa playing at Purdue. Iowa is having a really good season so far. Purdue, on the other hand, struggled the first half of the year, but has since done really well over the past four weeks or so. We know that they have the big win over Ohio State. I think Purdue will keep their winning streak alive, especially playing at home. So I think they will pull the upset over Iowa. So I'm going to pick Purdue to win over Iowa. Our next Big Ten matchup is Penn State at Michigan. Penn State obviously already has a couple losses of the season. They're probably well out of the playoff race. Michigan is right there, ready to jump in based on the Alabama-LSU game. So I think that Michigan has way too much to play for to let this one get away from them, especially at home. So I think Michigan will find a way to win. It's going to be close like a lot of tough Michigan games are, but I think Michigan will find a way to pull it out in the end. So Michigan over Penn State. The next matchup is the ACC matchup. We have Boston College at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is obviously that team that one week can look really great and another week not look great at all. And then Boston College is a team that's looked really well so far this season, almost week in and week out. So I think Boston College will find a way to go in and win this game. So Boston College will go into Virginia Tech and pull out the win in the ACC. Let's move over to the Pac-12 for our next matchup. We have Stanford at Washington. We know that the Pac-12 as a whole, the entire conference has really struggled this year. Washington State's probably the only team that has any shot at any playoff chance. But this is still a big matchup between Stanford and Washington. The winner, depending on if Washington State stumbles down the stretch, could go into the Pac-12 championship game as the North Division leader. So it's really big. Washington, I think, has just struggled too much over the last couple of weeks. They pulled a quarterback last week And so I think Stanford will have enough to be able to go into Washington and pull off that win. So I'm going to pick Stanford over Washington. Our next big matchup is Notre Dame traveling to Northwestern. Notre Dame obviously is number 4 in the playoffs right now, even though they're jumped by LSU with one loss. Notre Dame is undefeated. They have the big win over Michigan already. Another Big Ten matchup this week. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull an upset on this one too. I think Northwestern at home will find a way to get it done over Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame has a lot of pressure on them. This is probably their biggest game left of the season. They do play USC at the end of the year, but USC isn't very good. So I think Northwestern is Notre Dame's biggest game left. And I think that the pressure might get to them on the road. So I'm going to pick Northwestern in an upset over Notre Dame this weekend. The next matchup is a Big 12 matchup. We have Oklahoma, which is traveling to Texas Tech. You never know what you're going to get in this matchup with two high-powered offenses. Texas Tech has tried to put a defense together this year. They've done a little bit better than in the past. Oklahoma, again, they're going to be their first big defensive matchup since the defensive coordinator changed. They did play TCU and Kansas State, but both of them are big offensive struggles. So this will be a big matchup for the Oklahoma defense this week. I think they will go in and definitely have enough offensive firepower, no matter how the defense does, to be able to pull off the win over Texas Tech. And we will see how their defense goes, because their defense is going to be the key to whether or not they can move up from number 7 into the playoffs by the end of the season. And then finally, our last game of the week is obviously the big one in the SEC. Number 1, Alabama. Number 3, LSU. Alabama's going to have too much. LSU is a good defensive team. They're going to give probably Alabama the biggest matchup they've had this season, but it's not going to matter. Alabama has too much on both sides of the ball. Alabama's going to go in there and win by double figures in this matchup also. So those are my matchups of the week. Hopefully I do better than last week with a 5-5 record that I had. We'll see how it goes. Enjoy the matchups to the last month of the season, and this week is going to be amazing. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.